Welcome everyone to the Invermere Transportation Master Plan public information session. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'll pass it over to Rory to give us a little bit of context about the event.
Well, hello everybody, and for those of anybody that's watching or anybody that's going to be watching that, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit through this and to hopefully contribute and participate in the process that the District of Invermere is undertaking. So the District of Invermere through Council in 2020, well actually in 2019 made the decision that that it was time to update our transportation master plan. We had a series of transportation documents that were contributing towards our transportation plan in the community, kind of initiating with the transportation study in 2006 and then a series of development studies after that. In June of 2020, we engaged Urban Systems and have the benefit of Kayla Royce and Marcia Ng, who's with us today, and in addition to Dana Mears, who is managing the webinar for us. So Kayla and Marcia are are engineers specializing in traffic issues and solutions, and they're going to be, they've been doing the heavy lifting for the District of Invermere on this under my guidance and Council's guidance. So Kayla and Marcia are going to lead the webinar, and there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers. And if you don't get a chance to do this live and you're watching this after the fact, please make sure you get your input into the District of Invermere, and we'll manage it towards the final plan. Hopefully the end of April is the target date for that. So thank you. You can.
Awesome. Thanks, Rory. So just a little bit about how to participate today. So if you're having audio settings issues at all, just fiddle with the settings until you can hear our lovely voices. For this event, we're just going to have questions be submitted through the question and answer box or Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can submit your questions anonymously if you like. We're happy to know who they're from. We won't be affiliating any names or comments with any particular persons who submit them. At the end of the presentation here, I will read out the questions from participants, and if there is any, and our team will take turns answering them. For any questions that we don't have time to get to, we will create a frequently asked questions section to be posted on the website. And I think that is everything. We can pass it over to Kayla.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. Just confirming you can hear me. Yeah, good. Okay. Okay, so before we get too far into the transportation master plan, I will just go over what a transportation master plan is. It's a long-term plan for the municipality's transportation network, and it considers all transportation modes. So that's walking, cycling, and driving. And it kind of gives the municipality an idea of what improvements will be needed and when they'll be needed. It looks at population and employment growth, and it considers new and emerging technologies, trends, and policies. So why do we need this transportation master plan? So Rory kind of touched on a few things to start, but the first reason is because the district had a couple of assumptions in their 2006 transportation study with regards to development, and some of that development has actually happened. So now with revisions to what the district sees happening growth-wise, we can implement that into our model and create a better understanding of where improvements are needed. The second reason is because since 2006, there's been good innovations with regards to walking and safety for walking, biking, and driving. So we want to implement those standards into the plan. And the strategies, we want to provide the district with a strategy for prioritizing the projects that we recommend. And finally, last year, the district completed an active transportation plan, and we want to infuse those recommendations into this plan so that both plans kind of complement each other. So this figure kind of outlines the process of the project. So we started in June 2021 with phase one, and we anticipate to be done the project by the end of April of this year. The project also entails two rounds of engagement. You can see here in the red. And today's presentation is right here. So this presentation today will kind of walk through the first 3 phases and give you a quick overview of what we heard in the first round of engagement, where we had a survey, and kind of summarize those findings. So to start with the first phase, we looked at the documents that the district has already completed and plans for the district. So we wanted to make sure that any recommendations from these previous plans were in line with what we recommend going forward. And then the next part of phase one was data collection. We looked at, we conducted a couple more traffic counts and gathered a bunch of historical counts from previous studies that the district has done. And we took an inventory of the road and trail network to make sure that the model that we create is representative of the actual road and trail network. And we looked at 2016 census data. So the map to your right here shows with circles all the intersections that we analyzed in our analysis. And the pink circles represent the intersections that we counted this past summer. And the browny orangey ones are the intersections that we gathered from previous studies. So phase two involved looking at the operations of these intersections. So that involves the actual traffic volumes at the intersections, and not necessarily the driveways right next to the intersections or the skewedness of the intersections. The model doesn't really pick up on that kind of thing, but in later phases of the project, we do look at that kind of thing. So we looked at existing and future conditions, and within those, we looked at the PM peak hour during like a typical fall day, and we also looked at the summer PM peak hour or summer peak hour. And these scenarios represent like typical peak traffic volume times within Invermere. And you can see the map to your right shows the existing traffic capacity issues in yellow dots, and the 4 more intersection capacity issues for the future traffic conditions with purple dots. And yeah, so to take a step back first, when we analyzed the intersections, we had to kind of adjust the volumes. So we looked at the existing volumes, and to do that, because of we only had existing volumes at some of the intersections and historical volumes at others, we had to adjust the historical volumes to meet traffic volumes for today's conditions. And then using population and employment growth, we grew the existing volumes to future traffic volumes to represent 2031 traffic volumes and 2041 traffic volumes. So I promise that's the most technical we'll get today. Okay, and then before we could take a look at the actual improvements to these intersections, we needed to take a step back and look at what is important to the district and what kind of improvements they would be supportive of. So we did this through development of a vision statement for the transportation master plan. And this was developed using input from the town staff and also previous plans that the town has, or the district has completed, like the official plan and the active transportation plan. And we kind of incorporate the values and visions highlighted in those into here. So we came up with Invermere's transportation network is safe, accessible, connected, and sustainable. It provides healthy and economical mobility options where residents and visitors alike can travel accessibly by their mode of choice, experiencing the small town character in a beautiful mountain setting. So to get to this vision, the next step was to develop goals. So these goals kind of help, as I said, they help get to the vision. So we developed 5 key themes within the goals. So the first one was safe. So making sure improvements to the road network create a safe road network for all road users, like cycling, walking, and driving, and a connected network for all transportation modes. Developing in the network in an environmentally sustainable way. So that's ecologically sustainable. And then the fourth one is economically sustainable. So finding any cost efficiencies in implementing the transportation network, and innovative. So that would be like taking advantage of any emerging technologies that would be supportive of what the town or what the district sees. So having developed the vision and the goals and establishing what's important to the town, we could now look at what the opportunities of the road network are. So I'll pass it over to Marcia to tell us about this.
Thank you, Kayla. So as Kayla mentioned, we completed a number of analysis and review of past studies. And what you see in front of you here is the list of improvement projects that were recommended based on those previous TMP recommendation, as well as the updated operational and capacity analysis based on the updated traffic count, as well as the updated projected future development growth. And we've also updated it just based on the recent survey that was completed and the concerns that were raised from the public. So I'll go briefly over some of the improvement projects that were identified, just for a bit more context and explanation around them. Projects 1A and 1B are tied together, and those are essentially recognizing the constraints actually with project number 3 at Panorama Drive and 3rd Street. So project 1A and 1B looks to improve some of the road network connections in the Invermere area in order to help facilitate some additional traffic volumes and trucks due to the constraints with what can be done geometrically with project number 3. And then project number 2 is looking along the entire corridor of 7th Ave / 3rd Street, also known as, 3rd Ave, and also known as Laurier Street. So that goes from like the bridge all the way to the downtown, the main downtown area. And that's just looking at improving traffic flow along that corridor. Traffic or improvement number 3, as mentioned, was about Panorama Drive and 3rd Street and just improving the traffic control at that intersection. Because of the slope along 7th Ave, 3rd Street, it's a bit difficult to get a signalized intersection there, but those are some of the evaluation that we'll look at, whether it be a traffic signal or roundabout or restricting certain movements at that intersection. At location number 4, it's 7th Ave and 4th Street, where the district has plans for improving that intersection control to a single lane roundabout. Improvement number 5 is just adjacent to that intersection, just to the west at 10th Ave and 4th Street, and that's also to improve the intersection control there. It's currently not a typical intersection with traffic controls, or sorry, typical traffic control at that intersection. The improvement number 6 is 7th Ave and 9th Street, so that's right in the downtown area, and it's currently a multi-way stop. But there's been times of congestion at that intersection, so just looking at whether or not it may retain as a 4-way stop, or if it gets improved to a different type of traffic control that can handle more capacity. Improvement number 7 goes back to 10th Ave at 13th Street, and as Kayla mentioned, in the long term, that intersection starts to experience some capacity issues. So again, looking at improving the traffic control at that intersection. Improvements number 8 and 9 are focused kind of in the area south of 13th Street, and it's looking at providing some traffic calming measures in some of the local residential roads and to promote an alternative connection to the beach aside from all the traffic going down 7th Ave. So that's where we'd look to improve the 10th Ave and 17th Street corridor. Improvement number 10 is just looking at the future growth in the Pine Ridge and Castle Rock area and looking for an alternative connection to connect the two communities aside from just relying on West Side Drive. Improvement project number 11 is just looking to also provide or improve, I guess, the connection from Pine Ridge to 13th Ave, and that's at 15th Ave to accommodate additional traffic. Improvement project number 12 is looking at the Johnston Road and then converting it more to a local road access rather than promoting it as a higher use corridor. And as mentioned earlier, we've added improvement project number 13, and that's right in the downtown, also known as Dysfunction Junction, 7th Ave and 13th Street, due to the geometric and skewness of the intersection and then non-traditional traffic control at that intersection has led to some confusion. So that's been added to the improvement project as well. So next, we are going to go through just briefly the community engagement process. So if you've heard of the project, we're hoping that you've completed an online survey that was circulated online at the end of the second half of January. We received quite a number of responses, and we've gone through all the responses. So just over 366 individuals replied to that survey. We heard a lot of great things, and what we heard report is just a summary of some of the key points that were provided from public and businesses that can be found online. So if you're also wanting to hear updates about the project, we have a project webpage. The link is right there at, it's on the main Invermere website, and then it's just a extended link, Invermere's Transportation Master Plan. So please go to the webpage for additional project update, any additional background information. There's also links on that project website to past plans that Kayla had mentioned. So some of those include the old Transportation Master Plan, as well as the Joint Active Transportation Plan that was recently approved by Council last January. And as mentioned, what we heard report from the first survey about the Transportation Master Plan update is also online now. We're going to have an online survey that starts, a second survey that starts tomorrow. It'll run for just over 10 days until March 14th. And this is just based on additional feedback that we received from the first online survey that a lot of residents and respondents felt they needed additional information. So this is a follow-up to make sure that we've captured all the feedback that the public has, and to give everyone an additional chance to provide any other feedback that they may have now that they've received the additional information. A second public information session will then be held mid-April, and this will tie into the draft when we present the draft Transportation Master Plan. So following like all the input we get from the second survey as well as the previous survey, we're going to use that to refine the Transportation Master Plan and then present that to the public and council in mid-April. So I'm just going to go briefly over some of the results of what we heard for the initial survey. As I mentioned, we received a lot of response and from a diverse group of respondents. So we received from different people who are just visitors or property owners, as well as permanent residents. So it was quite the variety of folks. As well, we had a range of age, so you can see on the graph on the sides where the age group was pretty much spread between 18 all the way to over 65. It was also fairly split between male and female respondents. It was about 50-50. 75% of the respondents did live in single-family home, and 50% of the respondents came from households of 2 people. So those are some of the key demographics. So it just shows that it wasn't from like a specific type of user group or respondents. So we're quite happy with the number of responses as well as the diversity of the responses. So some of the results of the response was, in general, the vision, goals, and objective were people felt very supportive of, especially the goals and the objectives. There were a few more questions just about the vision and what that meant, and so that's where we provided a bit more context about where the vision came from, the vision statement about and how it was created from a number of different policy documents the district already had. And then in response to the proposed network that we had provided, the top 3 ranked priorities were in order actually, improvement project number 3, which was the Panorama Drive and 3rd Street intersection. So there was a lot of acknowledgement as well with respondents that this was a very important project and a very important intersection to improve. Project 1A and 1B was also high on the priority. Although that was high on the priority, there was a lot of open comments as well for that area about some general concerns about promoting additional traffic through there, but there was a general consensus too that something, the road network in that area also had to improve. And then improvement project number 2, which is the 7th Ave 3rd Street corridor, that a lot of respondents also acknowledged was a priority to improve. The next 3 projects in order of priorities were project 4, 5, and 10. 4 and 5 are the 2 intersections along 4th Ave and at 10th Street, 4th Street at 10th Ave and 7th Ave. And those 2 intersections were important to people, as well as project number 10, which is the connection between Pine Ridge and Castle Rock. So the 3 projects, though, that received the lowest rankings were project 6, 8, and 9. And the addition of intersection 7th Ave and 13th Street, so the dysfunctional junction intersection was added, as mentioned, because of a lot of respondents actually mentioned that it should have also been on the list. In terms of some of the strategies that we inquired about, these were the top ranking ones for the key themes for the transportation plan. For a safe community, the most important strategy that was highlighted was to review the sidewalk requirements on roadway and update it to reflect best practices. For connect to community, the most important strategy that was indicated was to connect new bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure to existing infrastructure. The most important strategy for an environmentally sustainable community was to develop more support programs and initiatives that encourage people to walk and bicycle. And this could include wayfinding, walking, school buses, and safe routes to school programs. For an economically sustainable community, the most important strategy was to implement a road and active transportation network improvement in conjunction with each other and or other infrastructure projects that are identified. And then for an innovative community, the most important strategy that had been identified was to provide unique infrastructures to facilitate e-bikes and e-scooters and then e-share programs as well and charging stations. And then actually just before that, one of the key comments and general themes that we received from the survey is that residents and businesses would actually like to see a greater emphasis on pedestrian mobility in the plan, with specific mentions of creating like sidewalk and safer on-foot experience. And the second most commonly mentioned concerns was also, or opportunity was to the mobility of bicycle and promoting more cycling infrastructure in the road network in general. So this also ties nicely in with the recommendation in the Joint Active Transportation Plan that was approved by Council last year. So just to wrap up our presentation today, we just wanted to outline some of the next steps. As mentioned, we have an online survey that will be posted tomorrow. This is essentially a follow-up survey for everyone to provide any additional comments that you may have that you weren't able to provide without the additional information. And as well as there's any additional thoughts you might have that you want to make sure is included or considered for the Transportation Master Plan, please go online and respond to that survey. That survey link will be posted on the district's website as well as the project webpage, so you can find the link there. And then following that, we'll essentially be refining the options in the draft plan development over the next month, and we are planning on presenting the draft plan to council and again to the public mid-April. So look out for updates on that and announcements for a second public session in mid-April. And then we intend to finalize the plan and present it to council for the end of April. So thank you for listening and for attending today and or online. If you have any final questions, please feel free to ask it now.
Awesome, thank you, Marcia. We did receive one question, which Rory, you answered in message, which is great, but just for the people who might be watching this recorded version, I'll just ask it out loud again. So the question was, can you expand on the 10th Avenue plans and the projects for that area?
Yeah, so I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but yeah, the 10th Avenue plans involve numbers 5 and 7. So 5 is, they're both intersection issues. So if you spend a little bit of time on our roads in town, you know that number 5 is the Sobeys corner and Pharmasafe corner. Really busy spot in town. The few things that we need to look at there is the pedestrian crossing is not safe. People are using a crossing over frequently, and there's there really is no established. There's kind of a loop around way that nobody uses, but so that needs to be addressed. The connective piece between 3rd Avenue, Laurier, 7th, it all kind of gets a little muddled there at the lights. It's a really short piece, and it can get jammed up there really quick. So we're looking at potentially, like a button roundabout or something like that we can keep traffic kind of moving and deal with pedestrian kind of influence. 7th Avenue is also a problem. 13th Street is really busy and services the schools, all of the schools, and the Pine Ridge and Castle Rock and all of the residential in that area. And that area of the community is growing significantly. So we know that that's the top of the 10th Avenue Hill and that intersection point. There's a bit of grade issues there as well. So, but we do have a significant right of way there. So there's that'll probably be some design work around kind of managing the traffic flow and improving that pedestrian crossing there as well. That's the school kids come down that route, and it's a pretty significant walk across that intersection there. So we need to manage that as well. So those are relatively high on the priority list, but you know, again, their budget influenced and all of those kinds of things, but they definitely have been identified as priorities. But those are the two on 10th.
I should also clarify, I just noticed that project number 5 is actually situated on top of the wrong intersection. It should actually be shifted, the dot itself should be shifted up a block on 4th. Yeah. I think right now it shows up on 5th, but it should be 4th and 10th.
I thought that was just because it would overlap with 4th, but that's what it actually is. Yeah.
Well, we'll update the map before we post the presentation online. But if you're listening recording, it's now you know.
Thanks, everyone. Is there any other questions? Please feel free to toss them into the Q&A box and we'll answer those. And if not, we will close out the session and really appreciate you for joining us this afternoon.
Really thank anybody who's on the call, and please get the message out that this will be posted and they can view this. And you know, we're still open to taking you know, any and all kind of comments or ideas, recommendations, certainly while the next survey is running, so that we can collate those and bring that back to it with an improved report to council. So thanks for your time, and thanks Kayla, Marcia, and Dana for your efforts and time on this. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.